Good evening everyone and welcome to an Oz Cyclone Chasers Cyclone video update tonight, the 21st of March 2014. My name's Chris Nitzo, and before we start tonight's update, I'd just like to let you know that our online shop will be opening up shortly, and its initial items will be basic stubby coolers, stickers and some shirts. However, we will be looking at branching out into some new items, some possible portable weather instruments, as well as some iPhone or Galaxy cases, and possibly also some polo shirts all ready to go for next season. But these items in front of you right now will be available for purchase from about early next week onwards. Now, your purchase will always go towards helping us and supporting us so we are able to continue what we do here, and also are able to document tropical cyclones from all across Australia, all around Australia, instead of just in Queensland. So we thank everyone for your support so far this season and previous seasons, and also we look forward to you supporting us, if you can, of course, into the future. Alright, this update tonight we're going to be talking about Tropical Cyclone or ex-Tropical Cyclone Gillian. We're going to be looking also at a fairly big rain event happening over Queensland, or about to happen over Queensland over the next week. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what the MJO is doing and what we can expect for possibly the remainder of the wet season. So let's get into it. So if we take a look at the northwest first, have a look at ex-Cyclone Gillian. She's really turning nicely here. So this is not far away from becoming a cyclone over the next 24 to maybe 36 hours. We would expect it to be named probably sometime late tomorrow. I think the Bureau in their latest update were going for a name sometime on Sunday morning, with the potential of it being named earlier than that though. So it really does look nice on satellite. It's probably looked about as nice now as it has ever in its lifetime. So it's quite fast moving towards the west, and is going to impact Christmas Island at some stage over the next 24 to 48 hours. Now we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the broadcast, and we'll go through the type of effects that Christmas Island will expect, and that's for our Christmas Island viewers' benefit. As we head towards the Pilbara and Gascoyne region, we actually see some pretty decent thunderstorms developing this afternoon. Some very lightning active storms, although not much of that rain hitting the ground due to some drier air underneath them. As we head towards the NT, we've also got some very isolated thunderstorm activity in the NT extreme coastal regions. A little bit too much dry air pushing into NT, but we also have a trough system developing through here. Now that trough system will enhance shower and storm activity now for the foreseeable future and push in an easterly direction. As it does that, we're going to see an upper level low amplify, and what we will see over Queensland is a dramatic increase in rainfall over southern and central Queensland. We also see over the past 24 hours ex-tropical cyclone Haiti weakened out into a trough system, hit the peninsula, hit the North Peninsula coast here, and anywhere to the south of that has seen some massive rainfalls, particularly remembering that part of the coastline we were always tipping to see those falls, which was this section here and this section here, with the Townsville coastline mostly missing out, that Ingham to Bowen area mostly missing out, and anywhere south of St. Lawrence missing out as well. And that's exactly what we've seen. So it was really well modelled, really easy to predict this particular rain event. So looking at the rainfall over the past 24 hours to 9 o'clock this morning, really you can see the red right in here, suggesting falls of over 100 millimetres at the time, and you can see the orange blobs up out here towards Mackay, and that's showing falls of 50 to 100 millimetres. So really very coastal, folks. It doesn't go inland very far. People from Mariba are ringing today or emailing us today, and really very depressed that a lot of that stuff hasn't pushed inland. Places like that, obviously in rain shadow areas, miss out. Similarly on the coast around the between Townsville and Bowen really has missed out as well. Once again, due to rain shadow effect, the orientation of the coastline is not conducive, because at the moment what's happening is the showers are coming in on around about that sort of angle, and so because the coastline here is orientated parallel to the way the winds are coming and the showers are coming, those showers are skirting past the coast and hitting the areas of the coast that are more susceptible or more north-south orientated. So when you've got those showers coming in like that, they're whacking straight into that part of the coast, but they're missing this part of the coast here. So that's why we've got such high rainfalls up here, some high rainfalls here, but nothing in between. Pretty similar story since 9 o'clock this morning through to 6 p.m. tonight. We've still had falls here over 100 millimetres on the wet tropics coastline south of Cairns. Still some really good falls here between sort of Innisfail and Ingham. And once again, the area from Ingham to Bowen missing out, and then south of Bowen, we've got some moderate falls of rain again today. A little bit more inland today as well, so that's pleasing to see. Some of these falls in here between 10 and 25 millimetres in the central inland regions of Queensland. So at least some of that rain is starting now to penetrate west. We'll continue to see that penetration of moisture westwards, and we'll eventually early next week see a massive increase in rainfall in this area. So for tomorrow, the rainfall, we're going to continue seeing some of that isolated shower and storm activity over the inland parts of WA. We're going to see a little bit of isolated shower and storm activity over the North Kimberley and also over the top end of the territory. We might just see an increase in that isolated activity, or maybe not so much an increase in the frequency of them, but the isolated activity will tend to be a little bit further inland as well as onto the northern top end coast. We'll get a little bit more moisture penetration through inland a little more. And also over the Gulf country, we're going to see some isolated shower and storm activity. Also over northern inland Queensland and even into central inland Queensland, some of that moisture from the Coral Sea pushing westwards. We're going to see some very heavy falls again in that Cairns to Townsville or Cairns to Ingham area, with some lighter falls then from Ingham all the way through to Mackay. Once again, a little rain max there around Mackay that we will need to watch to see if it eventuates. So for Sunday, we see very much a decrease in rainfall across WA, so we see a more stable air mass penetrating the area. We still see some isolated showers and storms here, some isolated showers and storms across the top end, maybe getting a little bit more scattered over the Arnhem district, and also continuation of isolated showers and storms, although in Queensland, those showers and storms now start to push a lot further to the south as well, into this region here. Now that's in response to a sharpening or amplifying upper level trough that just starts to show its face on Sunday. On the coast of Queensland, that extreme rainfall eases between Cairns and Townsville, and we start to see a more moderate falls of rain there as the easterly flow weakens a little. By Monday, we see a definite increase in shower and storm activity all through the state, anywhere sort of west of that red line and east of that red line. All through Queensland, we see an increase in rainfall, shower and storm activity, particularly over the southern and central inland or central western parts of Queensland. We also see a continuation of shower activity on the North Tropical coast, although it is a little bit more isolated and a little lighter. We see an increase in activity over the West Peninsula, and we continue to see a more scattering of shower and storm activity over the northern part of the Northern Territory, and also some very isolated showers and storms continuing in that Pilbara and Kimberley coastline region. And by Tuesday, we actually start to see a bit of an increase in shower and storm activity, or potential shower and storm activity, pushing in as far as the Gascoyne region or far western Pilbara here over WA, but really the peak and focus of activity has to be over Queensland. Look at this massive increase in rainfall now over southern and central inland parts of Queensland on Tuesday, and we actually see a re-increase of shower and storm activity, possibly tending to rain activity over the North Tropical coast and Herbert and Lower Burdekin and Central Coast and with Sunday's region again. Southeast Queensland also in with a chance of the coastal strip receiving some showers, but really the heavy falls will remain over northeastern Queensland and southern and central inland Queensland. This is going to be a godsend for them if they're going to be receiving the type of rain that is currently being modelled. And here's what I mean. From Tuesday to Friday next week, we're going to see some really big falls of rain in through this area here. So these are the green, the light green here is 15 to 25, the darker green's 25 to 50, so that's 1 to 2 inches, and then the aqua colour here is 2 to 4 inches, and then any more than that is a real bonus. But look, general falls here, and the big thing about this is it's general falls. Just like that rain event about a month ago that was over northern inland and northwestern Queensland, that was very general rain. Same thing here. We're going to see general rainfall, not just those spotty showers and storms. That's the way it'll start, but eventually mid to later next week we're going to see that general rainfall developing in this area. And the culprit is an upper level low or an upper level trough, a very, very sharp one. And what we also have is an easterly stream. So what happens is that the winds come in off the Coral Sea. The upper level trough or low will allow those winds, those warm moist air, to lift up high into the atmosphere, because the air above it is much colder than it would normally be. And so what we get is this sharp uplift on the northeastern edge of the upper low. The upper low is going to be in here somewhere, and on the northeastern edge of that you're going to see sharp uplift, and because of that uplift it's going to create very heavy rain and heaps of storms and heaps of rain activity for this entire area to the northeast. Obviously this region here is going to be the favoured area for that shower and storm activity, or rain and storm activity, and once again that coastal region, especially on that easterly flow, is going to see some very heavy rain as well, possibly just as heavy if not heavier than what we've seen already. Okay, now since there's no tropical cyclone threats to Australia in the next week, possibly the next couple of weeks actually, based on the MJO pattern, we'll have a look at the longer term projection for the MJO. This is 2 weeks time, out to the 3rd of April. We start to see the MJO pushing into Phase 3, Phase 2, Phase 3 between now and then. Let's have a look at what Australia can expect during Phase 2 and 3. So, as the MJO is in Phase 2, what we see over Australia is generally the northern part of the continent is really overtaken by these easterly wind anomalies. That means that we've got fairly big highs in here and in here, and what they do is they circulate these drier easterly winds. Now, it's not so much the case this time around, because we've got an upper level trough developing here, which is going to dump a bucket load of rain. I wanted to use another word there. I've got to remember this is G-rated. It's going to produce a lot of rain in this region, so it's not a typical Phase 2 event. But over the west of the continent and the north of the continent, we have got these drier easterly winds, and it is quite normal conditions for this time of year to see so much dry air in this area. So it doesn't necessarily herald the onset of the dry season. It's just this is what we would normally expect in an MJO in Phase 2. Now, in Phase 3, what happens is that down here, the highs do weaken out a little bit. And what we see is, while we still have easterly wind anomalies, they're not that strong, not as strong as they used to be. Now, we still see drier than average conditions overall, but they're much closer to average in Phase 3. Now, up until early April, the MJO will remain in Phase 2 and Phase 3. Now, as of early April, there is considerable model disagreement as to whether it will continue on into Phase 4. Now, Phase 4 brings us a little bit more wet weather, particularly over southern Australia. So we see a lot more wet weather potential over this part of Australia, and we also see just the potential for wetter than normal conditions over the northeastern parts of the territory and parts of the Queensland's east coast. Now, as I said, this isn't a typical MJO event in terms of what we would typically expect, because the upper level low over Queensland or New South Wales is really going to throw a spanner in the works. But looking at the tropical atmospheric characteristics, by Phase 4, we are starting to look at the potential for back to normal conditions, or possibly wetter than normal conditions. Now, we just don't know if the MJO is going to make it that far, or whether it's going to weaken out. Now, obviously, if we continue on and we head to Phase 5, Phase 5 is the money phase. So this is the phase, and Phase 6 here. If we can get the MJO back in early to mid-April, we're going to see maybe not a huge widespread rain event over the entire northern parts of Australia, but we will definitely see an increase in cyclone potential as we head towards the middle of April. But it's a matter of, can we get the MJO back by that time, and can we get it back with any type of intensity? Now, if we look at the longer term projections for Phase 5 and Phase 6 of the MJO, and if we take a look out to the middle of April, 18th of April here, from the latest from the European Ensemble, we actually see the bad news here is that the MJO gets to around about middle of Phase 4 and then just dies, just goes kaput. At least that's what most of the model guidance is suggesting. It gets early to mid Phase 4, which means we're just about on the brink of getting back to average or above average rainfall conditions across northern Australia, and then bang, it just dies. So that's a bit of a cruel twist of fate. Now, the big thing to know there, though, is that there's a lot of disagreement. You can see out here, we've got massive outliers. So way out here on phase 5, we've got a fair few outliers suggesting it's still going to be pretty strong. Remember, this is the money phase. This is the money phase. If we want rain over Australia, we want some late wet season bursts. Phase 5 and Phase 6 is what's going to give it to us. Phase 4, less so. So this is where we want the MJO to be before the end of April. If we can get it back here before the end of April, we can have one last burst of real wet season type conditions over the far north of the continent. And certainly anywhere in Phase 4, 5 or 6, we would see an increase in cyclone potential. So that's something that we do need to be aware of, and we do need to be conscious of as this MJO comes back in towards our region in early April. If it can maintain some type of intensity, if it drops below this little circle line, it's too weak to really have much of an effect on our weather. If it stays, the circle, you could probably just make it out, goes around here. So if it stays outside of that circle, the MJO is likely to be strong enough to have some impact on our weather. Now, after the end of April, the MJO no longer really affects us. It becomes more of an effect on the northern hemisphere. So folks, Gillian will be the last one that will be around our region for at least the next couple of weeks by the looks of most of the guidance. After that, as I said, the potential re-increases for us to see a new tropical cyclone sometime in April in the Australian region. How much that potential increases will depend heavily on that MJO. Alright folks, the next 5 or so minutes of this broadcast will be wholly and simply for the benefit of our Christmas Island viewers. Ex-tropical cyclone Gillian. So, ex-tropical cyclone Gillian, we have here is developing a lot faster than the Bureau and most of the model guidance suggested. So it's on the brink of, and I showed you the satellite picture in the first couple of minutes, it's on the brink of really being named, to be honest. Looking at its satellite signature, as I said, it's probably the best it's looked since it was first born. So it really is a good looking tropical low. Now, it is expected to pass very close to Christmas Island. Christmas Island is now on a warning. It is expected to pass near it as a Category 1 tropical cyclone. A couple of days ago, we were talking about it passing as a tropical low and then developing into a tropical cyclone. Now we're looking at it as a Category 1 and intensifying tropical cyclone. So the potential even exists for possibly destructive winds on Christmas Island if the system intensifies. It continues to intensify as quickly as it has been doing so today. You can see here that while there's excellent model agreement as to where it's going to go, it's going to track in this sort of direction. This sort of error margin, it's pretty good for an ensemble of guidance, but it is so important for Christmas Island as to which one comes off. If we see a track more to the south here, we're going to see minimal impacts on the island because they're going to be on the northwestern quadrant of the tropical cyclone. So it is so important. The exact path of this system is so important because if the system tracks directly over Christmas Island or to the north of Christmas Island or just to its sort of northwest of Christmas Island, it's going to be in the southeastern quadrant. Now, this is the worst place to be in the cyclone the way it's structured at the moment. To the northwest, it doesn't pack much of a punch, but to the southeast, it's going to pack a fair bit of a punch. So this is why it's so important, the exact track, and we can't tell you what the exact track is going to be just yet. You can see there in the Bureau's latest track map, they do have the system passing, which would be the worst case scenario, just to the north of Christmas Island. That way the Christmas Island itself would be right in the strongest area or the strongest quadrant of the system. So it's not the ideal path, this one, but you can see here there's still a fair error margin out here, and there's a fair error margin out there, so it could pass a little bit further to the north or a lot further to the a little bit further to the west or a lot further to the east. Now obviously the best case scenario for Christmas Island here would be if the low tracked from there in that direction, because if you're located to the northwestern quadrant, you're not going to see too much out of it. So really, I'm going to take a real zoomed in approach here at Christmas Island itself. Look, no one else lives around the area, so there's no point me showing you a wide view. Let's have a look right on Christmas Island. Tonight, 10 PM, only a little bit of rain happening. Tonight at 1 AM, sorry, this is 11 PM WA time. This is 2 a.m. WA time. We start to see some really heavy rain developing in and around Christmas Island this morning, or sorry, Saturday morning. As we head to 5 a.m. we can see really heavy and intense rainfall developing right over the top of Christmas Island here. Now the system, according to the European model, tracks right over the top of Christmas Island as we head towards Saturday and Saturday afternoon. And then the system is located well to the south of Christmas Island as we head towards Sunday morning as it develops into a tropical cyclone. Now the Euro is probably underestimating intensity a little bit. So let's have a look in terms of wind when we're going to start seeing the wind increase. So this is 8 p.m. tonight. 8 p.m. tonight, you can see gale force winds developing on the southern quadrant. This is 11 p.m. tonight. You can see the system just tracking to the north of Christmas Island. Here's Christmas Island right in there. As we head towards 2 a.m. tomorrow, we see gale force winds developing right over Christmas Island. 5 and 8 a.m. tomorrow, we see that the system tracks right over the top or just to the west of the islands itself. But look, remaining a fairly weak Category 1 tropical cyclone or a very, very strong tropical low. Look, the effects are going to be the same, folks. But see, this is the key. Remember, if you're on the northwest, so let's say this track is slightly off and the system passes just to the east of Christmas Island, you're going to be located in this area here. Now, you can see here the colouring here nowhere near as bright, so the actual wind strength here is nowhere near as high on the northwestern quadrant, so the wind strength out here is much weaker than the wind strength if you're just to the southeast of the system. So that's why the final track is all important. So folks on Christmas Island need to be preparing for winds of up to about 120 kilometre an hour gusts or 125 kilometre an hour gusts, and sustained winds of 30 to 35 knots or possibly even 40 knots at times if the system develops a little quicker than forecast here. But that's the worst case scenario at this point in time for Christmas Island. The other case scenario of the system tracking just to the east would result in you getting bugger all wind and probably also bugger all rain. So if we change the model now and we look at the GFS model once again in terms of wind and rain, 2 a.m. tomorrow, the system has some gales pushing into Christmas Island here. So Christmas Island itself is right in there. You can see that there's gales pushing into the island on that time frame. As we head to 5 a.m. tomorrow, we continue to see gales impacting the island. 8 a.m. tomorrow, we start to see some weaker winds, and then by 11 a.m. tomorrow, we actually start to see the system crossing or making a landfall, if you like, right next to or right on top of the western edge of the island. And then as we head to 2 p.m, the system continues pushing to the south, and we get these northerly winds. Now, I think the inhabited part, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not exactly sure on this, but the most inhabited part of the island is located on the northern edge, so you might actually get the worst of the wind conditions or the experienced wind conditions over most of the people that live there as the system tracks just to the southwest of you. You can see these 30-knot winds, but they're coming directly with some pretty big swells and big waves straight onto the more populated part of Christmas Island there. And then as we head towards Saturday night, the system continues tracking away. Look, folks, the big thing with this one is it's moving a lot faster than we probably thought 2 days ago. So that can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. A good thing because the system will only likely affect the place for 12 to 18 hours. It could be a bad thing, though, because it might actually enhance the winds on the leading edge of the system. So as the system tracks so fast to the southwest, the winds, particularly on its leading edge, will be actually enhanced. So you'll actually get stronger winds in that first initial quadrant, or that southwest-southeast quadrant. So folks, that's where we stand at this stage. Impact of a Category 1 cyclone expected somewhere in the vicinity of Christmas Island at some point tomorrow, probably around middle of the day, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But the good thing, as I said, as it continues to intensify, is it's expected to continue pushing fairly quickly away from the islands once it's affected them. So from tonight, from about 1 or 2 a.m. tonight, you're going to see some pretty heavy rain, and then that rain will continue through until probably late afternoon or evening tomorrow. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching tonight's update, And if you are on Christmas Island, please stay safe. For the rest of Queensland, please enjoy the rain coming up. We'll have another update on Tuesday night. Please stay in touch with our Facebook. If you are on Christmas Island, stay in touch with our Facebook, our social media, or purchase our app, and our app will have all the latest news on it if you don't have Facebook. And we'll keep you updated with what's happening around Christmas Island as this system continues to track very close to you tomorrow. Obviously, the Bureau of Meteorology should be your first port of call, though, for the latest updates and latest advices. Thanks for watching again tonight. Good night, everyone.